Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished professional, a fellow alumni of the same business school that I am from, Snehal Ponde from Singapore. Snehal, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ashutosh. Wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Snehal is a life and career coach. She's an author. She's an author of a book titled Don't Ask Me How I'm Doing. And as I had mentioned, she's a fellow alumni from the Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies. It's another thing that she's about 22 years after I finished my MBA. So Snehal, before we get into anything else, tell me a little bit about your own journey.
So, Ashutosh, I have been born and brought up in Mumbai. I spent almost 37 years of my life there. I did my engineering in terms of my education. I did my engineering to make my parents happy because I knew no better at that time. And then finally, I did my MBA in HR to make myself happy. I think it was the best decision I could have taken for myself.
Okay.
Professionally, I have almost 13 years of corporate HR experience. In 2019, we got the opportunity, my husband and I, to move to Singapore. And it was like our next big adventure. 3 years married. We were recently pregnant with our first baby. And we thought, why not? Unfortunately, I was diagnosed during lockdown in August of 2020, just after delivery with metastatic, that is stage 4 breast cancer, where the cancer had spread to my lungs, my liver, and my bone. From then till date, I'm still undergoing treatment. I'm still not cancer-free. The reason I talk about this as part of my journey is, I think because the last 3 years have brought me down to my knees, have been one of the most humbling experiences for me and life-changing. So there's a lot, that when you speak about the book that I've co-authored or, what I am right now is actually post-cancer. And something I never thought I would be doing in life are things I do right now. So yeah,
amazing.
That's.
And we'll talk a little bit about cancer, but I also want to mention that Singapore is probably one of the best places to be in. I mean, I lost my youngest brother and I lost my middle brother's wife, both to cancer in Singapore. But the treatments were outstanding, and they were. But we'll talk about that some other time. But, before we get into your journey further, when I was reading about you, you talk about your mantra, which is, we are stronger than our struggles. Help me understand this.
So yes, it is my affirmation because I feel I've lived it. So Ashutosh, actually, if you go to see, all of us face challenges in life, right? And they will come in different sizes.
Correct.
But sometime in your life, some of us face these Mount Everest of challenges, right? Where we feel we are done for. We are, and that's what I felt when I had cancer, especially stage 4. I felt I was going to die. That's it. And that brings in a very primal animal instinct, of flight or freeze. And I froze. I remember I froze at that point of time, just thinking either I have to get better, I will be treated, or I will die, either ways. And I just thought I need to just stay this way. I just need to stay frozen in time and play the waiting game. And thankfully, I had the right people by my side who believed that, I can't be like that. I needed to change. I needed to do something about it. I needed to do something actually beyond it. Like, treatment could not be the only focus in my life. And I think thanks to them, and, I think all of us, we hear about these miracles that humans can achieve. Like, there's this indomitable human spirit.
Correct.
Something in me changed thanks to the people in my life. And I stopped playing that game. And I clearly remember, I was in therapy for some time. And my counselor once asked me, I was 1 year down from my diagnosis. And she just told me, why don't you reflect on the year gone by? What has changed? And that's when this mantra actually came to me. Because I really felt that I had gone from, I am going to die, to let's try this out, or let's try that out. Absolutely. And I think I'd emerged stronger than my pain and the challenge that, I thought I couldn't surpass at that point.
Amazing, amazing. So you did tell me a little bit about how you felt when you were diagnosed. How did you build the strength and the resilience to fight it?
It's very interesting you speak about strength and resilience to fight and not my treatment. But
No,
yeah,
you'll get well. I'm absolutely certain you'll be well. And we'll be doing another conversation with you when we are cancer free.
Absolutely. So yes, Ashutosh, somebody very early on had told me that cancer is a mind game. And at that time, I thought this person had lost it. I didn't really understand what that meant. But for many of us, it does happen where these sort of challenges can plague your life to a greater degree than actually what the disease requires, right? And your mind can play huge amounts of tricks on you. So I had gone into this complete negative zone, right? And it was my resilience built overnight? No. And not without help, and I truly had to understand that I needed help, and I had to accept help without feeling it made me weak. So I think two things helped at that point of time. One was obviously the people in my life, and I'm very grateful for, it was this small group of people who were, day in, day out, tried to make my life better for me. And the second was, I remember working on this vision board. And the reason I made this vision board is because I didn't see a future. I was uncertain if I was going to live. I was uncertain if I, even if I lived, would I be debilitated? Would I be bedridden for life? What would be the impact? So there was so much of uncertainty at that point in my life, and there still is, honestly. But at that time, when I created this vision board, just the simple question of what kind of life do I see myself living, which I will be proud of? And when I saw what I had made, I truly thought it was worth the fight. That I do want to live this life, this Snehal 2.0.
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, that pretty much helped me.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that, your family supported you a lot. What was some of their early reactions, and what kind of support did you get?
So I think for all of us, our earliest reaction was shock, frankly, because there is no history of any sort of cancer in my immediate family. I'm the first. So it was pretty much like, how the hell did this happen? But I think the support I received was unwavering. My husband has been my biggest cheerleader, my biggest supporter. I call him my Betal from, the ghost who sits on the king's head and advises or gives a moral of the story. So while it's irritating to receive it from your husband, sometimes you need it. Sometimes you need that little push in life, to do something.
Yes.
So he's been that. My in-laws pretty much stopped their life for us. My mother-in-law was with me for 2 years. And my father-in-law was all alone in India because my baby was very small when we were detected. He was only 4 months old. So the only thing they told us was, as long as you need her there, she will be there with you. And that, it was a blessing for us, honestly. And I think also, the friends who come together for you. Now, it's not easy for them because they don't understand what you need. Frankly, you don't know what you need.
Correct.
If somebody says something to you, you will take it as if they're pitying you or they're being sympathetic, but they might not be. They might be coming from a very different space. So all of us were learning to be with each other and what I needed from them. So it was this beautiful ecosystem, honestly, that came together for me. And in a way that I wanted them to be there, not in the way that they thought was best.
Well said, well said. The other question that I've often asked a lot of people, and I've spoken to many people who have been through this challenge, why don't people want to talk about cancer? I mean, it's another disease.
Yeah. So I've come across different types of people. One are who've never been impacted by it. And if you're not impacted by it, you don't know much about it, and you don't have an opinion on it.
Correct.
Right? If somebody gets a heart disease, then their family will find out everything they would need to about the heart disease. Right? So there are these sorts of people. The second are people who are afraid of it. Frankly, because it makes you realize the mortality and the fragility of life. Right? Finally, there is something which we don't know how it hits, and we don't know if there is a cure. So anything like that, they will be afraid to even talk about it. And the third is something that, about 12 of us that who have co-authored the book, we've spoken about it. The misconceptions sometimes that can be there. People are afraid to talk because they feel it might impact their job chances, their growth opportunities. It can impact dating, especially for young adults who get it. It can impact marriage. It can impact fertility. So there's sometimes lack of knowledge, sometimes misconceptions. And I have to tell you this, that I have actually put it up. Recently, I made a trip to India, and a friend of mine whom I'd never met till, since my diagnosis, she just looks at me and she's like, "You look fine." And I remember thinking to myself, yes, one more misconception. How does cancer look?
I know, absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful, Snehal, that you were willing to speak and you've spoken to me at such length about this, because this is the kind of education that is needed for people. One more question relating to cancer, which is that based on all your own journey, would you have any advice for people who are facing similar challenges?
Yeah. So the first thing would be kind to yourself. The fact that any sort of mind or body illness is hitting you, it's like literally your body screaming, "Give me attention."
Yeah.
And the important thing is, we always say that I want to get better for my child. I want to get better for my friends. You don't need to get better for anybody but yourself.
Correct.
However, it might sound bad, but people move on.
Absolutely.
You want to be there. You want to be a part of their life. It's your own selfish needs. So put yourself first for that. Don't put other people ahead.
Well said.
And I think second would be financials. It can be a huge, huge financial burden.
Yeah.
So it's always good to, have that sort of medical insurance and save for a rainy day. So I think these two.
Very well said. Well said. So now let's move to coaching. What made you decide to become a coach?
So actually, I had started this journey in 2015. It was just something that I thought would help me in my career. But I never really saw it through at that point of time for whatever reason. I think I just got busy with work and things. When I finally reinitiated this journey in 2021, it was from the perspective of giving back. Something like what you're doing. It was about just making a difference. Frankly, because I saw the impact the right support at the right time can have on, how for example, the way I was supported exactly at the right time, and the way that people supported me, it helped me move towards a better mental state. It helped me look at the challenge in a very different way. It helped me do things which I naturally wouldn't have done if I wouldn't have received this support. So that kind of partnership, if I'm able to provide somebody, it's a wonderful opportunity for me to do something and to make a difference in this world, even a tiny drop. Yeah. So that's why I took it up at this point.
And, given your own background, your own amazing experiences, how have your experiences in your background supported your coaching philosophy, your style, and your values?
So I think the first thing about in terms of my coaching philosophy, and that's also the reason my mantra comes into play, because a lot of many of us believe that, what do I do about this? I can't do anything, when often clients come to you.
Correct.
But, and a lot of people actually who come to me with transitions in life. Either they're going through a major life transition, or they are going through a career transition. And when such transitions are at play, the first thing is that you don't know how to do it and you're pretty much stuck, right? So the fact that, somehow I was able to go through that journey and how I was supported really helps me understand how I need to support them. And coaching is not about you as a coach, right? It's about the way they need the partnership.
Correct.
So it's just about partnering with them in the right way, understanding you need to put a mirror to them. The second thing I think that impacts my philosophy is the person going into the transition and the person coming out of the transition can be different.
Correct.
And you have to know how you have changed. Are you moving towards darkness or are you moving towards light? Right? And sometimes that awareness itself can fuel your next few steps. So it's almost like saying, I will be there with you through this phase, but how will you be there for yourself through the phases going ahead? So it just because right now I don't need the support. They supported me at a time, but now I need to do it on my own, right? The journey is mine. So that's how I want people to be. It's sustained momentum towards the direction that they want to go into. That's my philosophy.
Fascinating. Great response. Thank you. The other thing, Snehal, is that, most of us have people who influence us in our lives, families, elders, senior colleagues, etc., etc. My question to you is, how have people influenced you, and how are they supporting your coaching work?
So I think my first few, the most important influencers I can think of were my parents. My mom was a kidney patient for about 20 years of her life. She also went through dialysis. She went through kidney transplant, the works. And somehow, very unconsciously, I feel I've imbibed a lot of her traits in me. The way I saw her resilience, the energy that she had, the attitude she had towards her challenge. It was almost a training ground for me, I feel. I think the second would be my father and my husband as the primary caregivers. And that again brings me to coaching, right? Because it's about how I was supported or my mom was supported and the way they supported us. And that's why I'm also a caregiver coach, because I realized how important it is even for the caregiver's mental well-being. And often they get sidelined in this entire journey, right? Everybody asks about the patient, or nobody talks about the caregiver. And actually, they have to make a lot of decisions in life. So my husband does all the research, because I stopped doing research fairly early. So yeah, I think that is the way. And the way they help me in terms of my coaching is, I think, motherhood, cancer, and career. All three somehow have to coexist. So I think they come, they help me in areas that I need at the right time. Like when I'm not being able to be there for my child, somebody else is able to be there. Right? When I'm bedridden, I know my child is taken care of, or my home is taken care of. So it's all a juggle, which these people really help me with.
Amazing. So I've got a couple of questions on coaching, then I want to talk about your book a little more. Snehal, I want to get your perspective on how does culture impact coaching? You and I are both Indian or people of Indian origin. And there is generally a tendency amongst, I've seen, is that I don't want to talk about my work, let my work talk about itself. And I've often discussed this with many people. I want to get your perspective on how does culture impact coaching?
So culture impacts beliefs, right? To a large extent, a lot of the beliefs and the value systems we hold has something to do with the cultural context we come from. And coaching is always done at the belief level, at least for long-lasting change. So as a coach, I have to be cognizant about the beliefs that I bring to the table and the client holds, right? And not get biased by either, right? And the second is about helping them understand what beliefs are they holding, which could be probably culturally brought in or through experiences that they've had. So it's just that, straight line. Culture impacts beliefs, and beliefs is what we work on.
Agree with you. Completely agree. One more question is now for the younger leaders, and you're probably a millennial yourself. But the millennial and the Gen Z leaders who have come into the corporate world have brought a breath of fresh air, and I'm from the boomers generation. And yet when I speak to people, the needs of the younger leaders is different from the needs of the older leaders. I'd love to get your thoughts on what are some of the areas the young leaders need to be coached in.
So what I have seen with at least Gen Z leaders, firstly, how do you sustain their energy and momentum towards long-term goals, which don't get you immediate gratification or immediate results? Sometimes, they are looking for that. And if they don't get it, it just, diverts their attention. That I need to do something else. I think second thing would be, and this is amazing about them, I think that they want to make a difference. It's not about themselves or job security or, things like that. It's more about how can I impact the world? What can I do differently? Right? I'm working, but I want to do something else. Like I remember talking to someone and she was like, I want to do something with my life. And she wanted to become, like, while working, become an influencer, something on those lines. And so working with them to understand their passions, understand what excites them, what drives them, so that they can start working in those areas. I think these are two things that I have seen
very interesting.
where they get coached.
Very interesting. So now I'm going to move to your book, which will be the last segment of our conversation. You've written a co-authored a book, which is Don't Ask Me How I'm Doing. I'm assuming it's available on Amazon.
Yes.
And therefore, I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check out Snehal's book. I will also go and check it out. You also said that 12 of you have written in this book, but tell me a little bit about the book and what was your hypothesis when you wrote the book?
So the main author, that's Sanjay Deshpande, he himself is a brain cancer survivor. And it happened to him at a time when he had just gone to Harvard, and day one he collapsed, and he had to come back for surgery, and he's deferred his Harvard admissions to next year. Now, the reason he thought of the book, and then rest of us joined in, is because people think of cancer as pediatric or geriatric. But what happens to people who go through it in the AYA, that's the adolescent and the young adult stage, is very different. Correct. Right? Because at that time, you're setting off on your career, you're setting off on meeting a partner, hopefully, settling down. There are a lot of things that are happening for you. Correct. And if at that time you get cancer, this how it will impact your life, I think he just wanted to bring that out, and that really hit a chord for me. It was not about, oh my God, I'm going to be transforming my life, and it is just real stories of people who have it or who had it and how it impacted their lives. So someone whose mom had it and then she got it, somebody who was hoping to start her life with a partner, and she's still single right now, and how she's living her life. People with caregivers, who are caregivers for their brothers or somebody, in terms of their loved ones, and even about my life. So it's raw narratives of people. It's not a self-help book. It is just stories of people, real experiences.
Amazing. And my last question to you, and this is for the many people who will listen to our conversation. What would you say are 3 lessons you want our viewers and listeners to take away from your own journey?
So first and foremost, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat it. Yeah. Please be selfish and think of yourself. Yeah. Right. I think the second thing I will say is, we always have this belief that now is not the right time. Yeah. And while it might be true in certain phases of life or whatever, you should always question that belief. And I had that belief that I cannot do anything till I'm cancer free. Had I lived on with that belief, I wouldn't be doing anything even now. Right. So sometimes you just need to question that belief, that is this actually not the right time, or is there something else stopping me? Right. And I think third thing, I don't think it works for everybody, but in case you need it, the attitude of gratitude. It helped me at a point when I did not think that there was any silver lining. But just seeing that silver lining at the time when I felt that everything was stacked up against me, it just helped me build a sort of positive, slightly positive mindset. So simple thing, like every night, try to write down at least 1 to 5, things that you're grateful for. I started with barely 1. I could not sometimes even think of 1, but I had to push myself. And now if you ask me, I can probably list 5 to 10 every night. Amazing. So it's a phase of life, and I'm not saying it's for everyone, but if you need it, you should practice it. Well said. Well said. And on that note, Snehal, and your 3 amazing lessons, think of yourself. That's what's most important. And I loved it when you told me earlier in the program, when you said that people think that, it's necessary for someone who's unwell because it's their need to be a part of everyone else's life rather than the other way around. Second, you said question the belief that most of us go through, which is now is not the right time. I think now is the right time to do whatever you have to. And the third one is attitude of gratitude. You also mentioned about how important it is to make sure that financially you take care of your needs earlier than later, because who knows when a challenge may come up. Absolutely. Thank you, Snehal, for speaking to me about your own journey, about
cancer that you're confronting so brilliantly. And I'm really looking forward to a conversation when you write to me and tell me I'm now cancer free, and we'll have another conversation on that. Thank you for talking to me about coaching, and thank you for talking to me about book. Don't ask me how I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.